Welcome to Magnify with Sue, the podcast for people who've done everything they were told and still feel something's missing. I'm Sue Paulson. Every week, we look at what it takes to move from self-doubt to self-love, from fear to inner peace, from striving to be enough to remembering you already are. Because the truth is, you came in magnificent. The essence of you isn't out there. It's right here in your own heart. So let's go find it. Let's magnify. Greetings, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor, and welcome to Magnify with Sue. Today, we are going to have an interesting focus. So I have my little magnifying glass here, and we're going to put the focus on loss and the challenges. Now in our magnificence focus that we want to be living our heaven on earth. But as we know, life happens, and sometimes we face enormous loss. We face tragedy, we face trauma, we face all kinds of adversity that shakes us to the core. And sometimes we don't quite know what to do with it because we're in it, and oh boy, it's tough. So my guest today, Lynn Banis, is a psychologist and the founder of Women Rising Together. So she and I are going to explore this topic of loss in a little more depth today to see if we can zero in on not only the bad and the ugly of it, but of course the good and the great that can happen with that. So Lynn is no stranger to loss. She, in her past, has, in a space of just 3 years, lost her mom, lost a younger brother, and lost her husband. Wow, that's a lot of loss. So in her work as a psychologist, she likes to focus on helping women through that deep loss. So welcome, Lynn, to the show. It's just a delight to have you here today chatting about this topic.
Thank you, Sue. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Great. Wonderful. Well, let's dive in a little bit here in relation to, so can you give me a time frame? So when you suffered these big losses in your family, what are we talking? How many years of happiness and carrying on with life did you have before this event happened?
Well, the first one, my mother was 106, believe it or not, when she
Wow.
passed. And so, that was 74, 73, 74 years of
Mhm.
happiness with my mom. And
Nice.
the cool thing was that the last 6 years of her life, she lived with us. And so we were best friends before, but we really got to be really best friends during that
Oh,
time.
I bet. What a blessing that must have
Yes.
been. Isn't
Yes.
that 106? Wow. Not many people can say that.
No, not too many.
I aspire to that.
Okay, well, she always said, "Getting old isn't for sissies," so keep that in mind.
Isn't that right? Yes, I have some elders in my life in their mid to late 90s, and they're telling me the same thing. So absolutely. I mean,
Yeah. So,
boy.
then it's been 3.5 years or so since my husband passed. So I'm relatively new to this experience.
Oh, wow. That's not a long time really, is it?
No, it's not. It's not because I think that people don't realize the first year you're in such a fog that you're just trying to get a hold of your emotions so that you can regulate them a little bit. And I found with my clients that at 2 years, the second year is different, but still just as bad because you finally get it that it's not changing.
Yes.
And that's that. Then you go through grief all over again because not only do you have your loss, but now you have the loss more of, well, what is my life worth?
Mhm.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And, still at 3 years, I have those days when that big tsunami wave just crashes over me
Sure.
and, it knocks you over. and
Mhm,
then you
mhm.
get on your feet and get back at it again.
Oh, yes. Well, when I was in my 50s, I separated from my husband in September, and 3 months later, one of my dearest friends, who was like a sister to me, her husband died. So there we are, both in our 50s, not we're alone now, and we're
Yeah.
going, "What?" And well, I had not any understanding really of how to deal with grief. I mean, I'd had grief at a young age when my mom died when I was 17, but we didn't know what that was all about. We stumbled and bubbled, and I came from the British stiff upper lip kind of background, and
I
so,
get that. And it's so bad for us, so bad for
oh,
us.
I'll tell you, no kidding, and so I remember even though we were going through different experiences, there was the loss was we shared the loss in common that all of a
Mhm.
sudden life as we thought it was going to turn out wasn't turning out that way at all. And I remember her first year, she wouldn't stay home. She absolutely did not want to go home. So every chance she had to be out and about, and I watched this and I thought, oh, I get it, and whereas I had kind of cocooned and kinda gone inward and didn't go anywhere hardly, and so but it
Mm.
was a very different kind of scenario. So then when you think of and I absolutely relate to the first year is tough in its own way, once all the casseroles have been eaten and the dishes sent back, then what? And
Yeah.
I often think that one of the tougher times is when everybody else resumes their life and you're left.
Yes. Yes. And the loneliness is immense. It's painful. Most of my clients have agreed with me that they feel pain in their bones. It just is so painful. Your body aches.
Mhm.
But, we as a society have really in the US at least, there's a taboo against about talking about death and grief and mental issues and so forth, and I know it's also true in Canada to a large extent,
Oh, yeah.
and
Absolutely.
so we never learned how to deal with it, and here we are, and it happens, and we don't know what to do. So we back off often, and that just contributes to the loneliness somebody feels. And then on top of it, we've got our female instinct to nurture and help and cuddle other people. So we
Yeah.
hide our grief.
Yeah.
I don't want to bother my kids. They have their own lives to live, and I still fight that,
Sure.
I still
Sure.
fight that, and I imagine in some degree I always will. And that's something that I work real hard on with my clients because we take on all these roles and responsibilities, and it's like life has just thrown everything at us, and we're going, okay, we can do that, I'll do that, and we're overwhelmed even before a tragedy happens.
Oh,
So,
isn't that right? Yes, yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, life can take you 10 rounds before real tragedy occurs, and then you go, "What is that all about?"
right, and I think it's worse now because of COVID. We first of all, we all are grieving, whether
Yeah.
we know it or not, and we probably think it's stress, but COVID took away our way of life. That
Yes.
and so that's a huge loss.
Yeah.
We've had to adjust over these few years you know, to change. I mean, change it is several times a day. It's not just a change a year, just whoa, it's mind-boggling, and
Yeah.
we have no way, most people, to deal with it except to just put your head down and keep going, which is not healthy.
No, no, it is well, and I know when I've been reading a little more about the nervous system in the body, there's this thing about this article I was reading recently was pointing out like how many times does your body have to prove to you that it's had enough before it sets the boundaries and
Yes.
and so when we think of the
what I find frustrating is that it's difficult for lots of people to make the connection that you and your body and your mind and your soul are all one. And if something happens to one part of you, it's not in isolation. And and if it, I mean, if the body's a communication device, which I believe it really is, it tells us when something is amiss, when something's gone wrong.
It does, and even before your brain realizes,
Yes.
your
Oh,
body
yes.
knows
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah, isn't that true? Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. So then, it becomes a case of, well, okay, what are we gonna do with this now? And wow, I I didn't have those lessons, and so we, do the best we can. So when you now you were mentioning when we were off camera, Lynn, that you've expanded your practice into working with women who've experienced really any kind of loss, not just losing a spouse. And so when you meet women who have come to a loss, can you give me a sense of what they're feeling and what kind of the first things you talk about might be?
okay. They're feeling most of the grief, feelings that when you have a personal loss of an individual, um, because it sends us immediately. Our body responds with fight or flight, and and so those mechanisms, it doesn't matter. Grief is grief, and it shows up. The body responds the same way. So it's very confusing to many people. What the heck is going on? And they don't realize that one of the most important things is their loss has taken away part of their identity. And when we lose our identity, we
Mhm.
really feel like, what? I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn. I don't know how to make decisions, and, on and on and on. And so you lose your job. Okay, you've lost your identity as a business person.
Mhm. Mhm. Sure.
You retire. You've lost your identity as a business person, and nobody calls you anymore. You're not important anymore. Uh, and so on and on and on. Divorce, of course, you've lost your identity again. And so when I really started thinking very deeply about this, it occurred to me that we just don't know how to really name things. So how can we understand it if we can't even name it?
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
yeah. So that's one reason why I did make that decision to expand, and of course I can help more people that way. Um,
Right.
but I'm not saying both sides, but I'm kind of putting grief here and everyone else there. But for all of everybody involved in that, we as women are very reluctant to take care of ourselves. Number one, to spend any money on ourselves. We don't think
Mm.
we, deserve it, or we can't afford it, or whatever. And you have to be willing to invest time and effort and probably some money to be
Mhm.
able to walk through this with somebody who knows what they're doing, who will take you by the hand and walk you through the process. No one should have to do this alone. It
Oh,
is
no.
so hard. And
Yeah.
human beings are very terrible at looking at themselves and finding the blocks in our lives that keep us
Yeah.
from going forward and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I just thought, these tools that I'm creating are applicable.
Yeah.
So much so that I hopefully foresee a movement, because I've got a lot of
Nice.
really cool things going on, and
Nice.
I'd like to see that expand. I have several women in Europe and Africa who are willing to run what I call wisdom circles.
Mhm.
Um, and those are just places for women to call in and talk together as a group of women and discuss. And I give them a lot of prompts so they discuss how this is working in their lives, so they can
Sure.
share what's worked and what hasn't worked with each other, and
Mhm.
not feel
Yes.
like you're going into the into the abyss by yourself.
That's right, with no lifeline or rope in sight.
No kidding. Man, it feels like you're untethered and you're floating somewhere.
Well, and haven't we the way society has developed for so many years in this fierce independence. I mean,
Oh,
I have pioneer blood for sure, you know,
mhm.
my relatives homesteaded back in the day, and there weren't many people around, and help was a long way away, so you just figured it out. You just figured it
Yes.
out. Well, those genes in me are really strong. And on one side, it has served me very, very well. There's no question that my determination and my resilience and so on is high. But the downside I find is that belief that, well, I have to go it alone. You know, that
Yes.
no, no, I'm fine. I'll manage. I'll figure it out. I'll whatever. And it's not that we can't figure it out by ourselves. We can, but why would we go through that pain and suffering, which is, I think, largely self-induced? I mean, events are events, and we feel whatever we feel from that. But why would we add more of our own suffering to that when there's help out there?
Yeah. I totally agree. I think it's something that women just need to understand that we are human beings. We need support. We have taken on so much that people don't understand. They don't see it because of this bravado that we have that I can handle it. Good
Exactly.
old wasp background mentality. Just do
Absolutely.
it, you know.
Yep. Yep.
And so we've done that, and in our attitude, and I'm terrible about this. I work on it all the time. Asking for help, sharing that I'm having a bad day. I don't want to burden my children. They've got their own families, but
Mhm.
even to the point where I don't call a doctor unless I really feel like I need one, and I just got
Mhm.
chastised not too long ago. I mean,
Oops.
you should have called me sooner.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's right. And so it's easy to understand that other women are doing exactly the same
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
because we're all cut from the same cloth in that sense. And
Yes. Yes.
so when I think of so my belief is that we are, and my biggest hope is that we're moving into a time of better connection, better collaboration, better joining together. And so you're talking about wisdom circles. So this is when I think of the indigenous community and women who would band together to just and they might talk or they might not. They might share what's on their hearts, or they're just there to support one another in a an interesting way. And so you're talking about wisdom circles. So tell us more about that. How did that come about, and what's going on with that now?
Well, I like to keep people in groups as much as I can. And there's some of the work that I do that's personal. So it is one-on-one, when
Sure,
we're
of course.
digging through self-limiting beliefs, when we're aligning values and behaviors and finding out who we are at the very core. That's very personal, hard work.
Hmm.
And so thinking about, well, how can I get people in a group that will create that support, and so I started them, and they're people love them and they don't want to quit. Which is good, because you're
Yes,
making
yes.
lifelong support and friends, and they know that it's created as a very safe container. There's nothing negative about it. Everything is accepted and nothing is criticized. And, it just, you are who you are. That's fine.
Yeah.
We accept that. And you're experiencing what you're experiencing, and we accept that. So that container that's so safe, and it's one of those that what's said here stays here. And if you can't do that, then you will be asked to leave,
Hmm.
because it's not
Yeah,
fair to everybody else who need that privacy and safety.
exactly.
Which is a huge thing when your emotions are so high.
Yes.
But it's just, when I tell people about it, there are nurses and doctors and all sorts of people who say, "Oh, I would run one of those in a nanosecond."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I look for volunteers to do that, and I do all the
Mhm.
training and give them all the materials, of course. But
Sure. Right. Right.
But that's there. And then the other cool thing is that I've just launched a membership site called womenrisingtogether.org, and it has all the functionality of Facebook, so you can have groups and all those
Hmm.
sorts of things. But it also has experts who deal with the issues that women who are going through this kind of thing deal with, on a
Sure.
day-to-day basis. So they're
Right.
giving programs, masterminds, posting articles, blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
and so that's all there. And then I have created a number and will continue to create and add automated AI mentors is what I call them.
Hmm.
And they're tools that people can use 24/7 when they don't have anybody to talk to or don't want to talk to anybody.
Ah,
They
sure.
can go there, and I mean, it ranges from I'm a hot mess. I'm having a hot mess day, or to
Right.
I've I'm awake in the middle of the night. I can't stop crying. I don't know what to do. You know, and everything in between, so that people can go right there and click on one of those, and it'll walk them through a process of finding out what's happening,
Hmm.
what have they tried? What's worked? What hasn't worked? I mean, it's like a coach
Yeah.
almost. And
Nice.
then it discusses a number of options and leaves them with at least three simple, easy steps to just begin to move them out of that space.
Ah.
So, it's for people who don't have someone to talk to,
Hmm.
who can't afford it,
Yeah.
who don't want to, you know,
Yeah.
and it's another very safe place for women to go.
Sure, sure. So then I'm gathering then that anybody in the world can access this,
Oh yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So you're
And
not
and right
dependent
now
on.
it's free
Ah,
because I just
oh,
launched it.
hey.
So hop in there because it's
Yeah,
going to have tiers that go deeper and deeper and deeper.
of course, of course. Well, I'm so happy we're in a world right now, as much as our world's in a mess. Really, the tools that are available and that people such as you are creating to help people figure things out, help people take the next steps.
Hmm.
Because, otherwise, we're living in a self-created hell. This is hell on earth if we can't find our way through. And of course, it seems to me that when it's the messiest is when we're in the midst of it. Well,
Exactly. The messy middle.
the
Yep.
and the only way out is through. It seems to
Exactly.
me.
Yes, you have to sit with it. I always say to my clients, it's like the old kids song, you can't go around it, you can't go under it, you can't go over it, you got to go through it.
Exactly. I think there's a country western song that and the chorus is something like, "When you're going through hell, just keep on going, and the devil won't know you're there."
There you go. Yeah, and there's so many times when we feel like we just can't move, and we try to fight that, but just have to sit with it, let it, because it does move through your body by itself if you let it,
Yeah,
and if you don't, it gets buried, and then you get sick
yeah,
physically or emotionally or whatever.
yeah, exactly. Well, I think about the stage of denial. Is that considered the first stage is denial when something really traumatic happens?
Yes, and I want to break the belief that there are 5 stages and you go through 5 stages, boom, 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 because it doesn't happen that way.
No.
And there are more than 5 stages. And
Sure.
you can be in one stage in the morning and another stage in the afternoon, and so it's very iterative. But yeah, this didn't happen. I wake up and my husband will be there, and that's
Mhm.
denial.
Yes, yes, exactly. Well, I recall when I had a cancer diagnosis in 2011, and oh wow, the river of denial was long and wide. And
Hmm.
because it's that state of disbelief. I can't believe this has happened to me. Like there's no way of of comprehending or taking it in, or and then of course fear is such a big part of that.
Oh, yes.
So what would you say um, the role of fear plays in all of this?
Man, fear is tremendous, because you don't know the future. And that's usually one of the biggest things that people fear is you have no control at this moment.
Hmm.
You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the right next step is. I mean, you can't even think about next steps. And so fear is tremendous. And I think that one of the things that is so helpful to people is to have someone help them discover the stories that they're telling themselves that
Mm,
that generate how they live, and is it where did it come from? Well, it came from my mother. She did blah 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 blah. Well,
yeah.
do you have to continue believing what your mother said or did? And people will go, "Oh,
Really?
Dad can make a decision here. Man, this has been ruling me forever. It's my mom's voice."
I can recall a time in my life when the voices got so loud and so persistent that I literally went on a campaign to shut them up. And so they'd start and I'd say, "Nope." And I immediately think of something else. And I
Yeah,
and I and it wow, that was a big effort because I'd had them in my head for so long and they were such a
absolutely.
big part of me. And
They come from childhood. They get,
yeah,
they get formed in childhood and then they're
yeah.
reinforced over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right, and it's so funny because I've had, people I would always talk about my grandmother was big on don't talk to strangers, which of course all kid well, I don't know if they all do now, but most kids grow up with, don't talk to strangers because our parents wanna keep us safe and our elders wanna keep us safe, and so I tell this story about when my grandmother used to say that, and I said, "Well," somebody's asked me, he says, "Well, how do you know that she said that?" And I said, "Okay, I was 20 something. We were in an elevator together, going on a trip somewhere, and a couple of fellows got on the elevator, and I immediately start chit-chatting with them and so on, which is kind of my personality, and how's your day going? And just ordinary stuff. And then I think we were in a hotel, so it was a hotel elevator, and we get off the elevator, and my grandmother turns to me immediately, and she's in her 70s at that time, and she says, you're not supposed to talk to strangers." Start laughing to myself and thinking, well, there's proof that I did get that message growing up.
Yes. Yes.
Because she's still telling me. So so then it was to work through and say, "Well, that actually doesn't work in my world. Well, why are people so afraid of public speaking?" "Well, you're talking to strangers and you've been told since you were tiny, 'Don't talk to strangers, don't talk to strangers.'" Well, there's the fear again, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And fear is behind so much of it. And I think there's a couple things there. One is we need to find little things that we can control. And we're not going to control that big picture
No,
because
no,
as far as I
get it.
can see, grief, that's huge kind of loss is the wrecking ball of life. One minute it's as usual, you're going along, and the next minute it's all gone.
Mhm.
And while we want to and often try to rebuild what was, we can't. It's not
No,
there anymore.
no, no.
And so many people get stuck right there, not understanding it's got to be different. And you have the opportunity now, which doesn't happen that often in life, to create something different, something that fits better for you.
Yes.
So that is goes along with the fear of, I don't have control. I don't know what's happening. That's all connected.
Sure it is. Sure it is. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it seems to me that there's a bleakness about being at the lowest level. I call it lower than a snake's belly,
That's
where
low.
it feels as if, well, I just want my old life back. And on some level you realize, well, that isn't possible. But as you were saying earlier, you don't know what the future holds. And so it's hard to imagine that there could be a new life that could be even better
Oh yeah.
than the old life.
Very, very hard. And the old life keeps coming back. For the longest time, I thought I was mourning my big house that
Mm,
I had to downsize.
sure.
And it's only been recently that I've realized it's not the house.
No.
It's every weekend when my family came and we swam in the pool and we had a barbecue, and that's never happening again because my house is too small now.
Yep.
The kids have grown up and they've got boyfriends and girlfriends and so on and so forth. And that just smacks me every once in a while.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, and I found that happening with possessions like chairs that were
Yes.
my grandmother's chairs. I was
Yes.
just loath to part with them, and they needed reupholstering or they were getting rickety and so on. I'm going, why am I hanging on to those chairs? And I realized it was the memories I was hanging on to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I expressed that to a friend at one point, and she said, "Well, Sue, take a picture of it, and then you can get rid of the chair." Oh,
Yeah,
really?
good idea.
What a
Fancy
novel
that.
idea. So, what would you say, Lynn, are some of the antidotes to the fear and the loss? Like you mentioned that one of the things was the looking at a little something that you can control. So what else would you recommend?
Force yourself to go with people, to not be alone. And I mean, yeah, you mentioned that one person wanted to be gone all the time and another person doesn't want to, but I think the majority of people would rather become a hermit
Yes, sure.
and not have to deal with people. And there's a fear there of having to talk about things that you don't want to talk about. That is something that you need to do. You need to talk about your loss. Not, "Oh, poor me,"
No,
but,
no.
"I miss this," or, you know, because it is an integral part of your life. You lived it. It's part of who
Mhm.
you are. You can't just dump it someplace and forget it, and
No,
you shouldn't.
no,
You shouldn't
no.
feel like you have to.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing, and I think, the fact that well, I believe we do not heal by ourselves alone.
Hmm.
We heal with people. We need to make sure that our people who are not going to drag us into a pity party,
Yeah.
but who are helping us see the loveliness in the day, who are encouraging us to get out and take a walk, be out in the air and fresh air, and maybe going for coffee. Here's a good example. I had a client just refused to go out of the house. Just no, no.
Sure.
And finally, one of her friends came and got her and took her. And she said, "We're going for coffee. Get in the car."
No ands,
And
ifs, or buts.
yeah, and the client said to me afterwards, she says, "You know what? That was the first time in months that someone didn't try to fix me."
Wow.
And yeah, wow is right. And that's one
Nice.
thing we need to understand. These
Yeah.
people are not broken.
No, no.
They're not broken. They just have some puzzle pieces that have jarred a bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you know, they're still them
Mhm.
underneath it all. And they have
Yeah.
the same needs as everybody else. So you just disappearing isn't helpful to you
Oh, no.
or to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and um it's also the disappearing inside yourself, even though it looks as if you're carrying on. Because of course, if
Oh yeah.
if you need to work, and well, maybe you might get 2 weeks to get your act together, but that probably is the long.
3 days in the US.
Yeah, yeah, and so you go, oh, okay, and then it's as if you're expected to, well, back to normal.
Exactly.
Well, that's the last thing we feel is normal when
Oh yeah.
that happens, and
And then you get the, "Why aren't you productive? You didn't used to be this way. What's wrong with you?"
yeah,
And that just makes that isolation more comfortable. I
yes,
wanna isolate.
yeah,
I get these questions are just, you know, but then you sit and think about it and you go, "Well, I'm not a good person and I should, I must, I could." Please, everybody, you hear yourself saying should, could, must, ought to. That is a red flag. That
oh,
is
sure,
a red flag for self-limiting beliefs.
Ah,
And my question is always, says who?
mhm.
I ought to do it this way. Says who?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you want?
Well, exactly, because if people move from the shoulda, woulda, coulda kind of scenario into, well, it's a choice. A Now, I might not like any of the choices, but there's gonna
Right.
be one that's less uncomfortable or upsetting or whatever than some of the others. It's still a choice. And
Yes.
and and of course, to me, we have more power when we realize that we have choice, that we're always at choice, that nothing,
Exactly.
even if we choose something that, yeah, well, I'm going to go that way, even though I hate the thought of it. I'm, I am doing it. I am choosing it. So it's about taking responsibility and saying, well, but how many of us, our lives are ruled for years and years and years by whoever brought us up and so on, and we don't even know it anymore. They
No,
may be long gone and they're still running the show because
for sure.
we're chained to that old thinking.
Yeah, it just is, and it's hard to break. But I have to tell you this. I think this is so cute. Albert Ellis is a psychiatrist. He's gone now, but he had a, a big poster that said, "I will not should on myself."
I love it. Well,
And
it's
it
such a
needs to
great
be in
reminder.
everybody's household.
Yeah, that's right. Like get the fridge magnets out and have buttons
Yeah,
on the mirror and
because we forget. We
yes.
forget.
Yeah, we do. Well, and to me, when we start moving in that direction, I like to look at the opposite of fear being love. And of course, anytime we can move into a place of self-love where all of a sudden we show up for ourselves and we learn to become our own best friends, well, there's something good going on there that I think is helpful. And but I think your groups are an amazing reinforcement for that because other people see the good in us and see what
Yeah.
would serve us better. But lots of I know I've had blinders on many
Yeah,
times.
yeah. It's very difficult to see ourselves and to see how we impact other people, and we just kind of get in this little zone of just living, just doing what we always have done, and
Yeah.
it makes it harder for us to discover what's really driving us.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what would you say to encourage women to take that next step to connect in some way with you or with another professional to get some help through whatever loss that they're facing?
Yeah, that's a great question because so many people are just so lost and reluctant or whatever. But I want women to understand that everything that they have experienced in life, everything they've learned, every, just everything has brought them the strength that they need to do what they need to do on this in at this point in time. It's in there. The difficulty is digging it out, particularly when you're very emotional about things. So
Mm,
that's where a professional, and like I said earlier, that knows what they're doing, that can take you by the hand and walk you through the process. They're not gonna carry you through the process.
no.
You don't want that, but you want someone who will be by your side
Hmm.
and support you as you go through it. That is absolutely essential because finding it out for ourselves is really hard.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and I think it's that when you have that support and you have that help, then it can speed up a process of getting through things is my understanding of how that
Mhm.
that all works. And so if you want the better life, the move to the next thing, and you're feeling too stuck and you it's hard, well then getting some help will, just like learning to ride a bicycle by yourself. It's hard because you haven't the foggiest clue of how to begin. And
That's
somebody
right.
shows you, and so we go to school and they said, well, you need to learn this, and so we'll teach you how to do this. You don't know how to play basketball, and so there's a coach. Well, well, then why would we resist being coached through some of the direst times in our lives when life has just smacked us so badly, and then we say, "No, I think I can do it myself." Really? Well, yeah, well, yeah,
Go ahead and try.
fill your boots if that's what, but, okay, but I think it's needless suffering in that regard, and
Yes,
so
it is. It's a struggle. Whether you're on top of it or not, because like I
mhm,
said, those tsunami waves just come and
they do.
you don't know when they're gonna come.
No,
And they hit at
no,
the most inopportune times, of course.
sure they do. Yeah, yeah,
And what do I do with this? I walk into a meeting, standing there chatting with someone, out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody looks like my husband. And boom,
exactly.
you
Yeah.
know, it you can't he just cannot create that, and you wouldn't think that that would happen, but it does.
No, it does. Yeah, that's exactly right. And then if you have the tools, you've been given some tools. Oh, now what did I just learn? How do I pull myself out of this?
Right.
Or stay with it in the moment or whatever's required, then you have something to grab hold of. So there's the
Right.
lifeline, right? That you
Yes.
say, okay, pull me through the muck because it's pretty mucky.
Ugly.
Yeah, and ugly. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Lynn, just share with us then how people can get a hold of you in the work that you're doing. I understand you're in Virginia Beach, in near Washington D.C., and so I imagine that's where you do most of your person-to-person work.
I do almost everything over Zoom.
Do you really?
Yes,
Cool.
yes, because it just makes it you're seeing each other, and
Hmm.
the coach has a better opportunity to pick up on the nuances in your body language and stuff when they can see you.
Of course.
That opens things up. I have clients everywhere. So I am on LinkedIn, and Facebook and Instagram. I post several times a week, and they're always, taking a situation and talking about it and maybe giving some suggestions. So I just try to equip people, because that's how I've learned is
Sure.
you know yeah getting more information. But and that's why I put together this membership site, which they can get at womenrisingtogether.org. And then I am going to send to you some things they can download when you um, make this live. One of them will be your next chapter workbook,
Mhm.
and another one will be how to support friends and family going through grief. And those are two of the big things we
Oh,
talked
wow.
about.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Oh, that's a vital piece of information people need.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, how lovely. Oh, wonderful. Thank you for creating the tools and for being willing to share them because
Oh,
that's,
absolutely.
yeah, that's
Like
helpful.
I said, nobody should have to go through this alone.
I heartily agree. I'm on that page with you, right? Front and center. Well, Lynn, this has been an absolute delight chatting with you. Thank you for sharing with my listeners the topic of loss and what you've learned about it, and bless you for even still being in the kind of the newness of that, for being willing to share that with us because it helps to know that there is life beyond and that everybody deals with it, and so that's helpful. So thank you again for coming.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to get my message out. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, my magnificent ones, that's a wrap for another Magnify with Sue. Check the notes at the bottom of the show for the links for Lynn's website, which is going to be womenrisingtogether.org, and access her tools. She has some great things to offer. So if you're struggling with loss and you're struggling with any kind of grief, do not do it alone. We both beg you. If you want to tap into your own magnificence and embrace more heaven on earth, then get help. That's what we're here for. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next Magnify with Sue. My magnificent ones, this is the journey, moving from fear to self-love, from doubt to inner peace, from hiding to shining. One episode, one conversation, one insight at a time. If you're keen for more, the Magnify with Sue newsletter is a tool you'll love. Week after week, we do this work together. Not as a one-off, not as a nice idea, as a real practice of discovering and embracing the magnificence that you already are. To sign up for this newsletter, join us at magnifywithsue.com.